This thing is called a belt disc sander. Usually the two come in combination. There's usually a motor and it can drive two different things. So you have a disc and a belt. The bigger danger here is probably with the disc, and I want to just comment on that for a second. Just suppose you wanted to sand a little piece of wood and you put it against the disc. Bad things can happen. It can flip out of your hand. I'm just going to slow this down. Okay, the reason I took a little piece of wood and had it flip through the air like that is because I want to tell you of what I think is the biggest danger. Years ago, students had the same kind of an accident, and now I've made sure they can never have that kind of accident again. Twice, students came to me looking like this. Bad look on their face, holding their hand. There was no blood dripping on the floor, but when they let go of their hand and I looked, the end of their index finger and their thumb was gone. It had sanded halfway into their fingernail, and when they released the pressure, of course, the blood spurted out until they put their hand up in the air. So here's what happens. They had taken a small piece of wood and they had tried to sand it on the disc sander. Now it's written on the table, never sand on the upside, only sand on the downside. If you're holding it against the downside, it's not going anywhere. But when the disc is coming up, it can flip the piece of wood out of your finger. So, as I said, two people have had accidents like this. When they feel it flipping out of their finger, so they just hold on tighter and keep sanding. But when it does flip out of their finger, it flips out of their finger and their fingers hit the sandpaper and it grinds the meat off the tip of your finger. You do not want that to happen to you, okay? You know what they did at the hospital? They sewed the end of the finger. They actually had thread go right through what was left of the nail and then went through the skin on the other side, so they sewed over the end of the finger. I think it took months for that to heal. Okay, I've solved the problem. In this room, that's never going to happen again because I never put a disc on the sander. There's no sandpaper here, okay? But someday you'll be working at a job somewhere in your dad's garage, in your friend's workshop. If you're using a disc sander, use only the part which goes down, not the part which is coming up, because bad things can happen. If you touch this sandpaper, it can take off a lot of meat in a very short time. So I'm going to describe one more accident. Now, I can't prevent this one. You just have to listen to what I'm saying and remember not to do this. The first project that grade 10 students make in my class involves a thin piece of wood, a little bit smaller than this. They're making a pencil box, and this thing slides in a groove, and sometimes it doesn't quite fit, and they want to put a little bevel on this plywood, okay? Well, that's easy. Just put it on here and sand a little bevel. But some people decide they're going to hold the piece of plywood in the air, okay? If you hold a piece of plywood like this, it'll come down, and right now I've put a fresh piece of plywood on here. I do this at the beginning of each year, but after we've used this for a little while, the sandpaper will have cut a little groove into the plywood so that this piece could jam between the sandpaper and the table. So when that gets jammed in there, it sucks the plywood down, and look where your fingernails are. So a couple times I have seen fingernails sanded right through, okay? That's not going to happen to you because, especially as a beginner, there's something that's easy to remember. Always keep one surface flat on the table. It can be flat like this, it can be flat like that, it can be flat like this. If you want to put an angle on it, you can do it like that. And so written right here on this table, keep one surface flat on this table. Simple. If you do that, you're not going to have an accident unless you actually take your fingers and put it against the belt. You don't want that kind of a manicure, okay? I think I'm just about done talking about the sander. Let me have a look at the lesson here for a second. Oh, I know. Sometimes, guys, this isn't a safety issue, but sometimes you want a nice straight edge on a piece of wood. This is not the machine that will do it, okay? You got to use a jointer. But still, you're beginners, and sometimes what people will do is they will put the piece of wood here and they'll just try to carefully go like this. Doesn't work. The sander will cut a little notch into the edge of the piece of wood, and then as you move it sideways, it'll catch the joint in the belt and break it. When I say the joint in the belt, I mean this. This is a piece of paper, obviously, and there's a joint right there, okay? If you catch the edge of it, because you've been trying to sand a straight edge, you'll break our belt and that's $20 down the drain. We don't want that to happen. And I think I've said everything I need to say about the sander.